Hey guys, it's Quinn, and today in a viewer requested video, we take a look at the top 10 James Bond allies. Now, because this could include many people by technicality, I'm excluding all Bond girls as well as Felix Leiter, both of which who have gotten their own list, so we just kind of crowd this one too much, especially at the top. I'm also excluding villains gone good, like Jaws and Moonraker or MI6 regulars, unless they go rogue, as defined by our number 9 choice. So with these sort of ground rules set, let's take a look at the top 10 allies in the James Bond series. But as always, we have to have our honorable mentions, and the top of this list was hard for me, and I think that these three were all my number 10 pick at one point, but I went with Coral Jr. from Live and Let Die because even though he's great for the time he's on screen, he isn't really there enough to crack the top 10. Similarly, Miss Anders and Hip, both from The Man with the Golden Gun, were both very interesting characters in a film that otherwise didn't really have anything to it. But Miss Anders is a little too depressing for being honest about it, and Hip ditching Bond midway through the film solidified him for me as my number 11 choice if I had to pick one of the three. Anyways, on with the show. Number 10, Coral from Dr. No. Very similar to his son in Live and Let Die, but with a lot more screen time. Coral makes the top 10 because, at least for me, having to sit through an hour of Bond trying to flirt with Honey Rider would have gotten really boring, and I've ripped this film for being vanilla as is, but Coral is the one beacon of a character that is actually interesting. I think even more so than Leiter in this film, Coral adds some pizzazz to this movie, and he seems to be the one character throughout this film that was actually physically strong. He serves Bond more loyally than just about anyone in this film, even though he has a ton of superstitions, which I think play very well into the entire ambiance in the film. And his death scene has to be one of the, I think, funniest in the entire franchise. Anyways, although he himself isn't the deepest of characters, which anchors him low down in this list, he at least adds something new for his 2 or 3 traits that he has, that being strength, superstition, and just blind loyalty. And those in turn make a pretty arid middle third of this film into something a lot more interesting. Number 9, M from Spectre. A tougher one to discuss because it seems that at one moment he loves Bond and then another one he wants to kill him. But that's true for every M in this series, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised. But why is an MI6 regular on the list? Well, simply put, I think more than any single MI6 compadre Bond has ever had, M in this film is actively going against everything he knows is proper and is going against all of his superiors solely to help Bond. This friendship they have for me is similar to Rogue Nation in that both films you have the main character running off with their superiors joining them because they know it's the right thing to do. But the reason M beats out, say, Q in License to Kill is because M here kicks ass and murders probably the most annoying character in the entire Craig era in the form of Andrew Scott's character. In narrowly missing out in my top 10 James Bond Daniel Craig moments, it makes this list because it shows that he cares more for Bond than following the status quo, so good for him for growing a pair. Number 8, Jack Wade from GoldenEye. He plays the same guy in every film, so if you've seen him once, you've seen it all, but I absolutely love the sort of sleazy American character he's given in this film. Although it is undoubtable that he's outshined by many more interesting characters in this film, including another ally who's higher up on the list, I think that's sort of what adds to his charm. In a film that has I guess a gaggle of insane characters, it's his normalcy that provides some footing and some reality back into the situation. GoldenEye is a film where a lot of action goes down and then there's like a 10-minute break period for everyone to catch their breath. And in that same vein, he is sort of that breath character where we can sit back and know that there's some stability for Bond. He's like the mothership for Bond in this film, and that before Bond goes out into the unknown, he has sort of a safety pocket in Jack Wade. He's nothing special, and that is sort of what makes him stand out. Plus, he's likable, so there's that. Number 7, Tanaka, You Only Live Twice. If Bond was Asian, it would be this guy. For as much of an ass kicker as he is, his chemistry with Bond in this film, I think, is unmatched by basically every other ally in the Bond series with the exception of maybe Felix Leiter. The reason he isn't higher though is for this very reason. He is simply too much like Bond. So instead of it being a sort of Batman and Robin duo, it becomes almost Batman and, well, Batman. And that's fine and it works here great. It's just the result of it is it doesn't let Bond be the sort of standout character that other, in my opinion, superior allies let him be. The whole point of an ally is to be a great, comrade to Bond, but at the end of the day, let Bond have his moment. Tanaka does the former, but never really does the latter. Take Felix. No one is Bond's bigger supporter, and especially in films like Casino Royale and License to Kill, no one has more, defining character and characteristics. But in both cases, Felix always lets Bond, have his moment. Tanaka never really does that, and indeed, he kind of just runs the show the entire time, unlike the number 6 pick. Number 6, Tibbet, A View to a Kill. As I discussed with Tanaka, a great ally lets Bond have his moments, and I don't think that anyone does that better than Tibbet at Roger Moore's last outing. As, without a doubt, the most likable ally Bond has ever had, Tibbet narrowly misses out on the top 5 simply because he's killed before anything really starts to happen in this film, so therefore Bond doesn't really get his support when he needs him. But even with this handicap, Tibbet is almost odd job level in his loyalty to Bond, and it's really it's something beautiful to see. Both him and Moore are pretty old in this film, relatively speaking, and their chemistry, well, it's undeniable. Number 5, Vijay Octopus. Although there is not any, particular characteristic that makes this character memorable, the reason he cracks into the top 5 is because throughout the film, he seems like the one person who is somewhat happy to be there. I've always said Octopussy is one of my favorites because it is one of the funnest, and that energy is carried no better than by Vijay. He cracks jokes in the middle of action scenes, he lets Bond do his thing at the casino, no questions asked, and his death is one scene I think in the entire film where you just step back and think, well shit, there's something going on here. He brings you into the film by acting as sort of a mini me to Bond. He keeps that energy up while being a sort of ex machina in getting Bond from one place to another, and I think that his death was really the turning point when a lot of stuff starts to go down, like actual plot. More than just about anyone, he is a great catalyst for plot and characters alike, so that's why he cracks my top 5. Number 4, Karin Bay from Russia with Love. Now, before I go into this, I want you all to know that the top 4 were all at one point number 1, and I shuffled them all around. So most of this is just going to be a discussion of their slight faults because they're all, fantastic allies. But Karin Bay from Russia with Love moves down because, well, he's only really in half of the movie if you think about it. Not to say that the time he was in the film wasn't, impactful, but, besides Red Grant, he really was the best part of the movie. It's just, I really would have been, happy to see him all the way out instead of dying off midway. And even though he did die out of the plot, figuratively and, literally as time went on, his chemistry with Bond was, absolutely fantastic for the time it lasted. One problem I've always had with Coral from Dr. No was that for as good as a character he was, I could never realistically picture Bond, actually being friends with him. But in Russia, Bond and Karim seem like friends dating back to, like their high school days. Both are one and the same in that they're both, kind of perverts. They love revenge and are overly cocky in gun battles. And I love how pissed off Bond gets when Karim dies. One of the biggest faults of Quantum Solace, in my opinion, was how Bond seemingly just doesn't care when Mathis dies. But here you get the exact opposite. Bond goes all out trying to seek revenge for someone who you could characterize as his friend, and it's beautiful to see and really make the rest of the film more interesting, which is all you could wish for a truly great Bond ally. I just wish he was on screen more. Number 3, Columbo, For Your Eyes Only. Almost the exact same as Karin Bay, but, he actually makes it to the end. Columbo's by far the best part of what I think is an otherwise pretty average Bond film. So what knocks him down for me? Well, exactly to my point, he is almost a carbon copy of Karin Bay, just a little bit younger, whereas the top 2 characters seem like their own men. For as fun and as likable as Columbo is, it seems that Bond and him never really get along. Like, Columbo looks up to Bond, whereas Bond, thinks of him as an annoying little brother. But all that ranting aside, he is without a doubt one of the most lovable characters in the entire franchise, and I couldn't just neglect him. He's so much fun, and I feel he never really gets as much love as he deserves by the fandom. Is the chemistry there with Bond? Not entirely, but it is an undoubtable fact that he is a top-notch character. Number 2, Valentin Tchaikovsky, GoldenEye, and The World's Not Enough. The most lovable bastard of them all. He's fantastic in his almost cameo role in GoldenEye, but what really skyrockets him to the top for me is his role in The World's Not Enough. I know I've been saying this a lot as we've gone further down in this list, but Tchaikovsky really is the best character in The World's Not Enough. He's kind of an ass, which Bond clearly loves. He's a little full of himself, but at the end of the day, it's the beautiful loyalty Bond and Tchaikovsky feel for each other. These should be two characters that really hate each other, and that does come out in GoldenEye. But it's awesome to see that as time has gone on, that these two characters have gone on to be very good, not necessarily friends, but people that can depend on one another if something goes south. They both respect one another, and especially in this film where Brosnan is at his most hard-nosed, it's great seeing that come into contact with someone as straightforward as Tchaikovsky. Number 1, Mathis, Casino Royale, and Quantum of Solace. It was really difficult choosing between Mathis and Tchaikovsky, but Mathis wins out simply because he feels more like a lighter level ally than any other ally Bond has had in the entire series. And what I mean by this is that Bond can just come out of nowhere, and Mathis is immediately there to help. No questions asked. As I mentioned before, one thing that absolutely drives me nuts is how the relationship ends in Quantum, with Bond getting rid of him without any thought. The reason it kills me is because in License to Kill, when Felix gets injured, instead of Bond simply ignoring Leiter and going out for revenge, Bond uses that anger to sort of propel him going rogue. The exact same thing should have happened in Quantum. In my opinion, Mathis is the only character that it seems like he had a real, relationship with Bond. It's one thing to lose Vesper in Casino, but it should have been that the death of Mathis is what really just pushed Bond over the edge into just insanity. But anyways, rant aside, Mathis reminds me of a sort of Leiter meets Q in a sort of way, with Mathis being an older figure that Bond looks up to. Even more so than Tchaikovsky, Mathis had a seeming knack for just cleaning up after Bond, and really no one had Bond's back more so than Mathis. It was a beautiful relationship to watch. Mathis as a character is one of the real highlights of a really interesting, almost two-part film, Casino and Quantum, and overall, more than any other Bond ally, Mathis was the perfect mixture of being a great character, but also quite literally clearing the way and letting Bond be the real character that shines, and for that reason, Mathis is the best James Bond ally. So what do you think the list? Was my criteria too restricting? Was there any major characters that I missed? Whatever it may be, leave it in the comment section below. And as always, like, share, comment, subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time. Ciao.
Boss, you're alive. So glad to see you.
Me too.